So Sean, let's circle back a couple of years and take us back to before starting your RNT journey. What were some of the series of moments that led you to decide you needed to make a change in your health and fitness?
Yeah, for sure. That's a great question, Akash. So, I think for me, the big thing that led me to RNT and wanting to get into shape was what probably leads a lot of young people around our age to get into shape, and that was my wedding coming up. So, I was one of those canceled 2020 weddings, and originally you know, I had that, I would work out, but I didn't really follow a good routine. I wouldn't lift that heavy, and I certainly didn't follow any diet guidelines. I mean, I tried intermittent fasting, I tried a bunch of different things that didn't really work too well, and I was becoming very skinny fat in a way, a lot of fat on the abdomen, a lot of skinny arms and legs, and so when I saw kind of the results of my body type with RNT, with my wedding coming up, I thought it would be a good time to really take my diet and fitness seriously. Now, one of the funny things, and I think one of the wrong mindsets that I had originally when I wanted to join, and I think that a lot of people do, is I thought that I could get into amazing shape in like 3 to 6 months. That's what I had planned to sign up for RT and 3 to 6 months before my wedding, and I didn't really realize that it's really a lifelong journey. And if you trust the process, you'll get the results. But those kind of fad diets, fad workouts that people try to do in 3 to 6 months, that they just don't hold long-term progress.
What were some of the crazy things you did before RNT? What were you spinning your wheels with?
Oh, I've done so many things over the past 10 years before RNT. I mean, I mentioned intermittent fasting, which, to a certain extent, was good to maintain weight. Not so great for me, at least in my experience, to gain weight and put on muscle mass. One of the other things I did was I would work out for when I put my mind to something, I certainly can be very disciplined about it. So I remember at one point in college, I worked out, I think, every single day for almost an hour in preparation of like marathon. I wanted to run a marathon, and I think every single day for like 6 months. It was like 180 days straight. It was insane, and that really wasn't healthy for me. I lost a lot of weight. Don't get me wrong. I lost like 30 pounds, but I was like skin and bones, like completely unhealthy looking. I did run I think maybe it wasn't a marathon, it was a half marathon at the time that I was training for. But, while it did work to lose the fat, I think that I was so mentally and physically exhausted by the end of that. It was really just unhealthy to work out that much. And that's why I've really enjoyed RNT because for me, at least my regimen is 4 times a week of working out, and those rest days are just as important to me, I think, for my physical strength as well as for my mental sanity to be able to, I was just, I've never been so exhausted physically and mentally in my life. And and I thought it was a cool accomplishment at the time to work out 180 days in a row, but looking back at it, it was the wrong thing to do.
Yeah. There's always that. There's nothing worse than working hard on the wrong things, especially if you're overworking as well. And I think a lot of people fall into that trap of more is better.
Yeah, yeah, and don't get me wrong, like exactly. I think I was in that trap. More is better, and I was in this very disciplined mindset, and it was to the point of a fault. I think actually we had gone on a summer vacation to Europe. We visited London, Paris, Germany, Switzerland with my family, and I was getting up at like 5 a.m. and going for hour runs. I wouldn't eat any of the food. I kind of really like uh, made the vacation not enjoyable for myself and also not enjoyable for my family because I was being too extreme with it. And so now, we talk a lot, and I'm sure we'll talk a lot in the next part of this episode about traveling and fitness. But I think there really is a balance where you can still achieve your fitness goals, but still, not ruin it for the people you're with, and also not ruin it for yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than ruining it for others. Like the one thing I said to a friend of mine the other day, he said, how's the diet going? I said, yeah, it's great. It's like, you find yourself irritable around other people. And I said, no, I've learned my lesson about 10 years ago that if I'm going to do something like this, I don't want it to impact others, because then I'm just being an idiot. If I'm being irritable and just blaming it on the diet, it's not their fault. It's my own stuff I got to deal with, right? Keep it to myself. It's my choice. No one's forcing me. And I think that's something that's really important, is learning how to integrate it, which kind of segues nicely into the topic of travel and the topic of how you found the process. Is in that, what have you found to be different around the RNT methodology and the RNT process over the last couple of years? Because now you've been with us for, I believe, over 2.5 years now. What's this process been like integrating into your lifestyle? I don't want to touch too much on getting into shape. I want to really dive into what you've done to make it a holistic, sustainable solution for yourself. Let's go through some of those steps you've taken.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think one of the first things that drew me to RNT as a vegetarian myself is that many of the other fitness programs that I had tried to follow in the previous 10 years to that were never really for kind of my diet. And that was, diet's such a big part of this. It would say like eat steak and eggs, or eat chicken as much as possible, and all this stuff that I didn't eat. And so what I liked about RNT is that there were a lot of vegetarian options. They understood you guys understand the South Asian diet, whether it's incorporating things like mung beans or paneer, et cetera, into, your holistic fitness program. So I really felt like I couldn't sustain the diet with other programs. But yeah, to answer your question directly, how do you turn it into like a sustainable lifestyle solution? I think another big thing for me has been, with the topic of like, one of the things that was hard sometimes was calorie counting and macro counting. But I think what RNT does, especially in the beginning, is it forces you to really become good at it. I was weighing foods. I really get a sense of how full I get with 500 cal meal or 600 cal meal or 700. And then one of the big tips you gave me throughout this coaching process was, when you're on the road and you don't have a scale and you can't measure the macros, et cetera, is to really focus on total calories. And that's really been game changing. I know it's not always ideal, but I think it's been game changing from a lifestyle perspective. And I feel like I still get a lot of the gains by focusing on total cal and, trying to implement more protein and fat into my diet. And stay away from those simple carbs that I think a lot of vegetarians get caught up in, because that's the most readily available food oftentimes. Yeah.
How do you approach that as a vegetarian? Because that's something a lot of vegetarians, plant-based, vegan dieters struggle with, is eating on the road and being able to sort of just not fall for the junk and the snack and the easy options. How have you found that? Describe like what I was like before, and like what sort of approaches you're taking now?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think, some of the things that I would do before I would choose like fried options, right? Like whether there's French fries or nachos and things like that. And that's just like, I don't even think about that anymore on the menu. So trying to stay away from fried foods. The other thing I do is, one of my diet rules for eating out is, if there's a veggie burger on the menu, I'll order it. And so, because usually that's a good source of protein. I'm a really big fan of Beyond Burger and Impossible Burgers. I don't know if you are too.
I think it's great. I think they're great.
Yeah.
And
then
you can't taste the difference. You can't taste
Yeah, exactly. Oh, really?
Oh,
Yeah.
I mean, you would know, but yeah, you can't taste the difference. Yeah.
Really? Okay. So like last night they had like plant-based Impossible on the menu. So that's it's like my go-to order. If they have a plant-based substitute, I'll usually order that, and that works pretty well. The other thing is, obviously, if they have tofu or beans, those are kind of my go-tos, I'd say. And then in addition to staying away from fried foods has really, really helped. And then the other part of it is just portion control, right? Which is, I will, I think you mentioned this in some of your articles as well as in the coaching we've done is to have like a diet Coke or something that'll help fill you up. Not to overeat has been really key, and that's I think that's probably one of the hardest things for people to get down. That causes overeating and weight gain when you're eating out. And so part of it is just, if you can't be the healthiest when you're eating out, at least portion control it and focus on total cal.
Talk about the eating out bit. Sorry, the overeating aspect of it, because that requires a big identity shift in being someone who just sort of eats as they wish when they're out to someone who is suddenly now conscious of health and fitness. So what was the transition for you, and what was that journey like?
Yeah, I was definitely one of those people before that would constantly overeat, and I think that's what led to my kind of skinny fat belly. And
Yeah.
so making that shift in mindset was really one of the things I think about is to eat until I'm satisfied, not to eat until I'm full. And that was a big shift for me. I think the other thing is, going back to that thought process of lifestyle solution that you had mentioned. I don't also fully limit some of the things that I like. Like if you, for example, my wife has a sweet tooth, so she'll often get desserts at restaurants. So what I'll do is I have like a 3 bite rule. Like I'll have 3 small bites. So I don't limit myself, but I'm not going to have, a huge piece of the cake or anything, but 3 bites is like, I feel like that helps limit it so that I don't overeat, go out of control.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's just, I thought ultimately what you're talking about is like the middle lane, right? There's no extremes in the lifestyle solution. It's just that steady middle ground of having your cake and eating it, but not
Yeah,
having the entire cake.
literally. Yeah, exactly.
So over the last couple of years, we've been through a journey where you got lean. You started at, I believe it was 65, just under 65 kilos. You got on lean. I believe you got down to, is it high 50s in kilos, high 50s.
Yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
something like that. I would know
and
it in pounds. I was like
and
122 or something in pounds. So
okay,
somewhere in the high 50s. Yeah.
and now we are 70.4 as of last week, so 74.4 kilos, so 70.4 kilos, but with only an extra inch on your umbilicus. This is a
Mhm.
very solid muscle building gains over the last 18 months or so, as we've been in muscle building. Describe some of the key principles you've taken that have allowed you to get these gains, whether it's from a training perspective, nutrition, mindset, lifestyle.
Yeah, I think to touch on training, since we haven't touched on that, I think that's been a really, really big responsible for the type of gains I've had in the muscle building process. And what I mean by that is, 2 things. One is I really focus with my training to try to get better every single week. And so usually when I'm checking in with you, I'll say, this week I focused on reps or this week I focused on weight. And I know if I just make that slight increase week over 18 months, and I know sometimes not every week that I can do it, especially with pull-ups, et cetera, that are or more difficult. I feel like the muscle is just forced to grow basically. So one of my friends mentioned who also is very he's way beyond me in his fitness process, and he's very built, and but he also likes to travel and eat out and do those things. So I'm like, how do you do it for your lifestyle solution? And he said one of the key things to him is what he always just makes sure that you lift heavy. And I think that's been key for me is like try to lift to the maximum that my muscles can and really stimulate them to grow. So that's from kind of a training perspective. Yeah, does that
And
answer
do,
your
and do you
question?
take that principle across even when you're traveling? Because I know one thing is you're in different gyms pretty much all the time, uh, whether it's for traveling for work or for leisure. That can
Mhm.
often skew muscle building gains and progress because you don't have a reliable metric necessarily. How have you,
Yeah,
what sort of approaches have worked well that we've tried to keep
yeah,
you on
for
that
sure.
trajectory?
Yeah, I know. So the different gym thing originally was definitely a problem, but I think I've found a good balance in that. Um, Usually, I mean, the places I'll choose to stay, whether it's in, just to give some context for people, I kind of split my time between my own um, parents' home in Vegas and my wife's home in Northern California, and then we travel leisurely. So there's a few different gyms. There's the one in my home in Vegas, and that's kind of my go-to standard gym that has all the equipment I would need. I also bought a gym membership in Northern California. So those two gyms are pretty solid. It's obviously the gyms that when you're traveling can be difficult. So actually one of the big things I do now is when I'm traveling is I'll look up the gym beforehand and make sure that they have heavy enough at least dumbbells, ideally if they have a squat or bench rack. We just went to a wedding in um, Southern California in Laguna Beach, and the hotel we stayed at before we had stayed there. I looked up their gym, and it had a really solid bench and squat rack. And so, yeah, I do go through that level of detail to make sure that I have proper kind of training equipment nearby. Obviously, it's not always there. Many places don't have the squat or the bench rack, but as long as they've got heavy dumbbells, I can usually accommodate some and make some adjustments on the exercises. Yeah.
What about from a mindset perspective when it comes to muscle building? Because you said you were guilty of the sort of 3-month quick fixes, build 30 pounds in 3 weeks, all these claims that you hear.
Yeah.
And I think you've learned that muscle building is a long process. It's not, it doesn't happen in 12, 16, even a year. How have you come to terms with that? And how have you set your targets longer term now? Because the other thing I really like is you have a hot beach holiday coming up and you're not like, oh, I need to panic cut. I need to do a cut now just for the beach. If you were doing that every time you went to a beach, you'd just be in a constant state of dieting, right? So,
Yeah.
talk us through that, because that's something I think a lot of people struggle with, is that long-term investment mindset of, I need to build some muscle. But it's one thing me saying it, it's another thing hearing from someone who's going through the process. So talk us through that evolution for you.
Yeah. I think that's one of the reasons that I quit and many people quit so often in their fitness kind of journeys, which is they're expecting immediate short-term results. And, while you could get some of that, especially when you're cutting, I think to see your underlying muscles, I think if you're in the body type that I was in, like the skinny fat body type, you really have to get into the mindset that it's going to be a journey for muscle building. And I think RNT has taught me that. You taught me that, which is I think you can't go too fast. The reason is, at least for my body, I find that if I gain more than a couple pounds per month, or basically 1 kilo per month, I'll just add too much fat around the abdomen. And so I think we were doing this before, and I was going way too fast. I was adding like 4 or 5 pounds a month. And I just added too much fat around the abdomen, and I realized that it doesn't work. And so for me, what I think about is, 2 pounds a month doesn't seem like a lot, but if you add that up over a year, that could be potentially 20, 24 pounds, 10 kilos in a year. And if you go for a year and a half or 2 years, it could be quite a bit. And I think you've sent me some articles and coached me that you also have to be okay with, when you gain that much weight, you're not going to look super ripped. You're going to have some fat overlying the muscles, but it's under there, and then we can cut it off, etc. So that's what I've had to come to my mindset, and that you can't just pack on huge biceps, triceps, chest with no fat gain at all and do it super quickly, which is what I thought that was my original mindset.
And how do you feel with like embracing the fluff and embracing extra body fat?
Oh, I feel good. Yeah, I think I feel healthier physically. I feel good mentally, and in terms of what other people perceive, I think most people think that I was way too skinny before. So they're very pleased with, whether it be my friends or, aunties, uncles, moms, dads, they all really think the weight looks good. So to me, I think the other thing is, I'm not walking around with my shirt off all the time. So it's not really a big deal. And I know that, again, it's something that I just have to kind of carry until we do the cut. But I'm happy to do that because I know that the muscle that we're building is going to be worth it in the long term. Yeah.
It's funny, to friends of yours who I had a call with them last week, and the first thing they said was that we saw Shaan, and we were like, dude, that guy's, he's looking jacked. And so I'm assuming you're getting, people are like starting to notice the gains coming in different ways now.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think like I was a completely different person previous to RNT. I didn't realize how skinny fat I was. And now, I'm not by any means jacked yet,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
at least I look more normal. And that's a difference to the people that knew me from before, like my friend that you spoke to. I think, I think it's been a huge difference. And it's the funny thing is people will notice it when you haven't seen them for 3 to 6 months, right? But like if you see someone every day, I don't think they necessarily notice it all the time.
Yeah. What have been some of your biggest challenges on the journey so far?
Biggest challenges on the journey. Okay, yeah, I think the first one was, I definitely think that the cutting process in the beginning was super difficult. And for me, that was because I was, cleansing the palate and having to go from this diet of, I was drinking sugary iced coffee drinks and fried foods to now eating clean, just having regular plain coffee, doing all of these things and making an adjustment. But taking protein, drinking more water, all those things. So I think that was really a adjustment process in the beginning. And then obviously when I got down to like, I think when I got down to that 122-pound weight, I was only taking in like 1,200 cal a day. So for sure, that was it's more mentally tough, I think, when in the cut, especially at the end stages of the cutting process, than when you're in the muscle building phase and you have a lot more calories to intake. So I think that was one of the hardest parts of the process.
And how did you find the idea of getting leaner when when you come in, you're probably thinking, I need to build and gain weight. What am I doing here getting leaner? How do you, because a lot of people in your skinny fat position, I always say to them, get lean first, then build. How did you overcome that battle? You're probably thinking,
Yeah,
I'm
I
getting
didn't.
skinnier and skinnier and skinnier. These guys are telling me.
Oh, dude, I didn't think it made any sense. I also, all the people around me didn't think it made any sense. They're like, why are you getting skinnier? You're already skinny, right? It's like, but I trusted the process. And you guys explained to me, it's much easier to, cut this belly fat off now than it will be to if you gain muscle and just continue to add to it. It's gonna be a lot harder to get those abs where you want them, etc. So, but in the beginning, I mean, I think that more so than me not understanding it, everyone around me didn't understand. They're like, "Why are you getting down to 120 pounds or whatever it was?" Like 122 pounds, 124 pounds. I was like, "You look so like gone skinny." And for anyone out there listening that's in the skinny fat position, I think it's the right thing to do, because one, not only physically will it be easier for you to pack on the muscle and get into that really incredible shape that you want after with that next cut, but I think mentally it's going to be the toughest part of the journey. And once you can get past that, at least for me, once I got past that really difficult part mentally and physically of the end of the cut, everything else comes so much easier. Like the muscle building process, I think has been a lot easier mentally and physically, because I already know what the toughest part is, and I'm ready for that next cut, when we get to it, obviously, and what I'll have to do mentally and physically to get there.
Yeah, I love it. I think that's really, really, really valuable advice for anyone who's in that skinny fat position, because it's always a mental mind game of like, I'm taking like 3 steps back. How does this make any sense? But you got to play that long-term mindset. So shifting gears into high performance and entrepreneurship. One thing I'm always hammering the message of why high performers need to use the physical as the vehicle to take everything they're doing to the next level of their life. How do you say it's impacted you as a high performance entrepreneur in your work, in your business, in everything you're doing professionally?
Yeah. Incredibly well. I tell people all the time that when I work out and I train and I eat well, my mental position, my productivity as an entrepreneur increases exponentially. And I'll see this sometimes because I'm an entrepreneur and I'm able to, kind of control my hours. What I'll do sometimes is if I get in a rut mentally while I'm working on something, I'll go to the gym. And when I come back, I just feel so refreshed mentally to be productive, to focus on time management, etc. I think many, if you're a high performer, whether it's an entrepreneur or you work for a company, but any high performer, RNT is a great program because one of the things that drew me to it is so structured. We have weekly check-ins. You're checking specific, key performance indicators like you would in a business, which is like your umbilical circumference, your weight, your calories, your macros. So there's certain items that you need to check in and do it on a regular basis. And it's the same way that as a high performing entrepreneur, that I'm able to run a successful business and manage them remotely is we have KPIs, we check in weekly, whether it be sales numbers or marketing numbers, et cetera. It's almost like applying that same concept of regular management of weekly KPIs from business to your body, essentially. And I think the results can be really astounding when you apply it to either.
Amazing. And how have you battled the concept of time? That's the first response you'll get as a high performer or entrepreneur. Yeah, but I'm too busy. I'm short on time. I don't have time to go to the gym. I don't have time to meal prep. Were you ever in that boat, or have you experienced that position or that dilemma or the paradox that we always face ourselves?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I think, when I was in residency with my medical stuff as well, and balancing the business, and then trying to balance diet and fitness, that was when I needed to practice the most kind of time management and fitness agility, essentially. So I had all kinds of hacks, some of which I still do, some of which I don't do. One of the things, if you're super busy, I would recommend, working out during like lunchtime. And I did that in residency sometimes, not all the time, but if I had an hour lunch break, I would, go to the gym across the street and do that. And that would help somewhat. Getting steps in, I think that can be sometimes very difficult if you're very busy sitting at a desk all day. One of the things that I did for that was I had a standing desk, and I put a treadmill under it so that I could kind of do work while I was getting my steps in, right? With meal prep, I mean, I think you really just, I would focus on Sundays to meal prep. I think there was just so many things, but I think, outside of the actual tactics I used, I think it's a mindset of what you prioritize, right? Are you going to prioritize working out and eating well, or are you going to prioritize, watching, 2, 3, 4 hours of Netflix at night? It's a balance, and I'm not saying necessarily that everyone's wasting their time. But I think that you have to prioritize certain things in your life, whether that be, you may be busy with work, you may be busy with family, maybe you have kids, etc. And I'm not saying to deprioritize them, but you have to kind of add this to the priority list.
And with that, with relationships and with family, do you find it's a battle getting them involved with a healthy and fit lifestyle, or is everyone on board? How do you face sort of events?
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the things that has been a challenge is, I think, and I'm sure many people listening to this podcast can relate, but is having South Asian parents that don't really, or, aunties, uncles, that, especially if you live with them, that don't really understand the diet aspect of it. It's very common in South Asian diets to be very heavy on carbs, to have a lot of oil, to easily overeat. So I think the way that I've balanced that is kind of just eat. Sometimes we do make our own food, but I'm not always able to when I'm at home with parents. So it's portion control, and then also choosing, asking my mom to make certain subjis that are, or shocks that are a little bit healthier, whether it be mung dal or tofu, etc. And then I think, so that's family. I'd say with friends, I think one of the challenges sometimes can be socials, right? If your friends are out on the weekend, eating out a ton and drinking a ton, that may not work sometimes for your diet and fitness goals. So I think you and I have discussed kind of limiting the drinking, sticking to clear alcohol, or straight alcohol, I should say, and hard liquor, rather than going for beers or things like that. I think there's little hacks that you have to use to make sure that you don't become antisocial, et cetera, because I think, like we talked about, mental is such a big part of this outside of physical. But those are a few that I use.
Yeah, I remember when you were navigating your wedding, they came in pretty handy. And for anyone listening wants a bit of trivia, me and Shaan got married 2 days apart.
Yeah.
2 days after your 2020 cancellation.
Oh yeah, that was kind of crazy that we were both. Were you also 2020 cancellation, or you were just
No, we were just
2021 always?
yeah.
Okay.
2 days apart. Brilliant. So for someone who's at the start of their journey, it can feel quite daunting. What's some of your best advice right now?
Yeah, so I think if you're at the start of your journey and you find that this can be a little overwhelming, I would say a few things. One is really focus on the week ahead of you, 1 week at a time. I really think about every single week, kind of, and when I check in with Akash every week, I ask him, like, what do I optimize this week? And if you can optimize one item every week, whether it be your steps, whether it be your diet a little bit, whether it be your training, a lot of times I'll just focus on one or two exercises that Akash says, this needs some tweaks, or this needs some work. That really, really helps. The other thing that I think is key when you're first starting out from a mindset perspective is make sure that you're weighing yourself every single day in the morning. Even when I'm traveling, I travel with a mini scale, to make sure that I'm able to weigh myself every single day. And the reason that I find that to be so important, and track it, obviously you can track it in the Google Doc. I have an app that kind of does it, and then I log it in a Google Doc in the RNT Pro platform. But the reason I think it's so important for me is if I see my weight going too high up or not going far enough, like depending on where I am in the journey, if I'm seeing it, like, and I know it can fluctuate a little bit with water every day, and depending on what floor you're on, but if it's consistent, I think that it really, really grounds you if you look at it every single day in terms of what you need to do that day with your diet and your training. I'll say, oh, I look like a pound too. I'm going a pound too fast this today. I really need to slow down on my diet today, and maybe it's just mental, maybe it's water weight that day, but it does make a difference in the long run. So I'd say that's a big thing people should be doing in the beginning.
Yeah, I think that's huge. It's something I try and encourage every single member of ours to do, is weigh yourself every day. It's not an obsessive compulsive disorder. It's nothing weird about it. It's data, and it's such a good, useful piece of data to look at every day. And it's accountability. Every morning you strip down. You've probably got mirrors in your bathroom, so there's an extra accountability there. You see yourself, you step on the scale, and you see where you're at, and it just keeps you in check. And it's something I do no matter what phase I'm in, because if it's maintenance, then I know I've got to stay within a range. If it's muscle building, I'm after a certain percentage, and it's fat loss, whatever. But it's the ultimate self accountability, I think. Every day you face the number, you face the mirror, and it's a really good way of keeping yourself in check, especially if you've got a lot of socials and travel, and you're not in a consistent environment all the time. So yeah, if you're listening to this and you're not weighing yourself on a daily basis, I think it's one of the best things you can do for weight management in the long run, and building that lifestyle solution.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like you said it. It's data, so it's data-driven fitness, basically, and looking at that number every single day. You don't even realize sometimes the subconscious mindset effects it can have. When you don't know what you weigh, what ends up happening, this happens to a lot of people, and I'm guilty of it myself, is you can just overeat, right? Or you can, you're like, I don't know what I weigh, so doesn't really matter what I eat today or how I train today, etc. But when you know that exact number day in and day out, and then you also have certain goals to hit. Like I mentioned, I try to go for that. I know you talk about 1 to 2% body weight per month during muscle building. I try to go for 2 pounds, because it's about 1.25%, something like that, of my body weight. So if you have, then whether you're progressing towards your goals or not.
To wrap up, last few questions. One is, how's the physical being the vehicle for you personally?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I've never felt better physically and mentally. And for me, that's been game changing. Like, to be able to, one thing that's nice is obviously having personal records in the gym with the weights. But what's even better is, and I was just thinking about this today, is how great you feel in the morning. My body just works better. My mind is fresher. It's been, I think you really just can't discount how big of a mental impact your physical fitness can have on.
Yeah, amazing. And if we circle back a couple of years, what almost kept you from joining RNT?
What almost kept me from joining RNT? I think the biggest thing was when I was first told that we don't think we can achieve your goals in 3 months, because I think my wedding was originally 3 months away. And I was like, well, I want to do it in 3 months, but I ended up joining anyway. And I'm so glad I did. And I think that might prevent a lot of people from joining, in that being told the truth is sometimes hard. Like, there's no fitness program I could have joined to get the results that I wanted in 3 months. And so I think for those people that are thinking about joining RNT, know that it's really more of a lifestyle solution. And any fitness program that's going to be effective has to be a lifestyle solution, because yo-yoing back and forth for 3 months at a time on different diet and training programs doesn't lead to long-term success. At least it hasn't in my experience, and I don't think it has in most people's.
Amazing. What's next for Shaan?
What's next for me? So from a diet and fitness perspective, I'm really, really excited. I think I'm at a point where I've gotten into a really good groove with the muscle building process. So I'm excited to push huge new weights both in the gym as well as my personal weight. become bigger than I have ever been. And then obviously the reward, I'm really excited to cut it all off and see what happens after. So that's going to be really, really exciting for me. From an entrepreneurship perspective, I'm in a really good place where I think and I don't know if anyone's ever told you this, but I think having these weekly check-ins with KPIs, et cetera, is something that I previously had at my business, but I've integrated even more. And so I think it's been very, very successful for my business. And I think anything that you do, and now I do it in all aspects of my life, whether it's investing or, I think that weekly kind of check-in or anything that I want to prioritize with KPIs involved really, really can accelerate results in a lot of areas of your life. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. But yeah, I'm, more than anything, I'm just excited to integrate RNT's fitness and diet program into my lifestyle solution so that I don't have to change who I am fundamentally as a person. And I think that's a big mindset thing that people, have a hurdle of trying to get over, which is, if I join RNT, I now have to change who I fundamentally am. I have to change, I can't go to socials anymore, or I can't travel anymore. Or I have to do something that's different, and that's not true. I can speak from my experience. I'm still the same person that I still go to socials, I still travel, and I've still been able to integrate this holistic kind of lifestyle solution of diet and fitness into my life, where I can muscle build and cut when I need to. Yeah.
Amazing. Where can people find out more about some of the projects that you're doing? I know you've got quite a cool few things going on.
Yeah, for sure. So for those that are interested, you can certainly follow me on Instagram. It's just at my name, at Shaan Patel, SHAAN PATEL. And then for anyone who is a parent or a student interested in coming into US universities, my company is called Prep Expert. It's an online education company. We do SAT and ACT courses. Those are the exams necessary for US universities, as well as tutoring for academic subjects for K through 12 grade students like math, science, English. So check out prepexpert.com.
Thanks so much. Amazing work. I'm really, really excited to see you continue to grow in 2022.
Cool. Thanks, Akash. It's been really fun on this journey, and I'm excited to go many more years together to see where we can get.